was it wasn't as advanced, if you want to look at it that way, as the source thought it was. So there was an amount of suffering that wasn't supposed to happen. That was never actually supposed to happen. That suffering that he went through physically was never supposed to happen. That was what you would call a side effect to what actually was supposed to happen. And what was supposed to happen is the message was supposed to get in clear. Everyone was supposed to understand. They were supposed to follow the same laws of the will and the same laws of the universe and the same laws of man and whatever all at the same time. But that wasn't happening. That didn't happen. So everybody saw him as this threat. La la la, King of Kings. Somebody gave him that name. God's Son. Everybody's God's Son because you come from the same source, whether you're Jesus Christ or whether you're Bill Barry. It doesn't matter. You all come from the same source. So he literally had to go through physical pain to get to the understanding of why he did what he did for God, the source, Christ, Buddha, universe, Allah, whatever. And that wasn't supposed to happen. The physical pain that that man went through was not supposed to happen. He was supposed to go through maybe a little bit of emotional pain, because it's almost like a birth. It's almost like being born. When the source really gets to where it needs to get, because if you think about it, you got to think about it this way, because everything comes from one single source. If you want to call it the Word of God, you can call it the Word of God. If you want to call it creation, you can call it creation. If you want to call it universe, if you want to call it atoms, quantum mechanics, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But the point of that is that it actually means that no matter what or who you are, you're still made of the same thing. And now, because of everybody going after technology, this TV, this goofy little thing, that Mac, everybody's lost the understanding of the fact that they are the most highest of technologies that was created by the highest of consciousness. There's no thinking in it anymore. The highest point of, whether you want to call it technology, whether you want to call it creation, whatever you want to call it, because we compare it to technology, you're it. You're it. Hello. You're it. Eyeballs, ears, you can perceive to hear things. You can touch something. You can hold an actual baby, which is a very simulation of what you are that came from your body. Think about that. There's no way that you can possibly say that there isn't a higher intelligence here, now, that is saying, get back on track. And this is how it's going to go. This is how it's going to be done. It's simple. It's real simple. Free will. Well, the free part in the free will statement, those two words, the free part is now being taken out of the picture. It's no longer free. Gotten so far away from the very plan of why we're here that whatever you want to call it, everybody has their religion, and I'll say it every single time that I mention it, is now coming in and saying, no more free will. No more free will. Now, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to you? Does that mean something that is going to make you feel endangered? Does that make you think that there's going to be a giant rock that's going to crash into the planet on December 31st? Who knows what that means to you? I'll tell you what it means. It's very simple. And here's where the knowledge and the wisdom and understanding come into place. Your will was put into inception of the human being because of the duality of the source, energy consciousness, and its relationship with a counterpart made of the same substance, but then all collectively put together and come up with a human being that can actually speak and talk and feel the senses and also have the ability to have a relationship with the very thing that made it. Free will has gotten in the way. Will has gotten in the way. Will and ego, here, will, here, ego. Ego being the 5 senses on the planet that you're on, the dimension that you're in. And then the will to be able to say, okay, I want to do whatever I want to do, and this is how I'm going to do it, regardless of how anybody else is affected or whatever the source is affected, if I even believe in anything other than myself. That part and this part, ego and will, now have gotten to clash. They're clashing. Ego doesn't know what will wants to do, and will doesn't know what ego wants to do. So now you have this roundabout reality, dimension, planet, universe, thought process, brain activity, whatever you want to call it, that has now gotten so far off of the original plan that now will actually has to be changed. It has to be changed. Now that's not going to be...
Is that going to cost the taxpayers a lot?
It's not going to cost anything. It's free. It's absolutely, totally free. And it's not even going to hurt. Like I said, no rocks hitting the planets, no explosions, no, Hollywood movie that you've seen is going to be the result of what this is going to be. And and I keep saying this and I'll say it all the time because it's simple. Once the understanding is there, after the knowledge, and then you've got the wisdom, and you put the three of those together, then it makes sense. So hang with me on this one. Hang with me on the knowledge, the understanding, and the wisdom. Because that's where all 3 of these come into place. You have to know something in order to understand it, in order to have the wisdom to be able to create whatever it is that you're creating. That's basically a flow chart into creation. It's exactly how that works. I got to know what that is, and now I know it, I understand it, and then over here I have the wisdom, and then the funnel gets opened up to the universe, which now creates. That's how all that works.
Okay.
So to get to changing the will, which comes along with these 3 words, and these 3 tools, these 3 understandings, these aren't just words. As I say them, you're seeing the word knowledge, and you're seeing the word understanding, and you're seeing the word wisdom, but don't look for the word. Look for the actual event. So when I say knowledge, think of something that you can comprehend. Right now my words are coming in as visual, they're not coming in as just words. So now in your head, in your mind, in your brain, in your consciousness, you now see these words as a physical object now being inseminated into your body. Because that's exactly how all that information works. So as I'm saying what I'm saying, it's going to go into you. So when I say knowledge, the first thing that you should think about when I say knowledge is expansion. Knowledge is expansion. I know what that is and why it is and what it's made of. And then because of that very thing, now you have understanding. Understanding. I understand this now. I went and looked up the chemical compositions that were in here and then looked up each and every one of them by themselves, and now I know how Tapato's hot sauce is made. That's understanding. My wisdom is going to be, where does it place it? Where do I place that? Am I really going to go out and start a company that makes hot sauce and duplicate Tapato's? Probably not. But at least now I know what this is. That is understanding and knowledge and wisdom put together. If I want to go out and make this sauce, I can go out and make this sauce now. This is where the free will starts to come in. This is where the will starts to come in. The will was put in place for the relationship. The relationship was to converse with a separate entity to the source's self, to be able to understand what it is. They are. Him, she, plant, bug, bird, anything that's in the sea, to anything that's on land, anything that floats in minute areas and even spaces between space that you can't see, will now have a relationship. Instead of having the relationship the way it is now, that ain't working. Because if you ask anybody right now, if you walk up and go, do you believe in God? Most people will get nervous, defensive, or they could possibly just walk away from you, or who knows, they can say, I don't know. Or yes, whatever. It's a variable of answers that you can get back. But what are they really thinking when they say that? Are they really thinking when they say, oh yeah, I believe in God? Okay, you do. And whether they read the Bible or whether they didn't read the Bible, because realistically, you really don't have to read the Bible. It's a good story and it has a lot to tell you, and it will obviously inseminate you with the knowledge that you need in order to understand the greater of what everything is about. It's not a religious sect. If you want to read it and understand it and have a good time with it, that's up to you. If you don't want to read it, you don't have to read it. But always remember that the source is already inside of you via your DNA. Your DNA are little atoms strung together with pure information that allows the cells to do what the cells do to create a human body, so the source, whatever you want to call it, can literally experience itself through you. That's how that works. Now there is no longer a need for a separation. Instead of trying to stand in front and talk, which humans don't. Because their belief systems are rooted in scarcity. What I don't have or what I don't have enough of. And that's why you see an abundance of material things, yes. Whether it's Europe, whether it's United States or China or any other part of the world, you're always going to see something. That was a falsehood, which if you want to look at the biblical term of it, you could say a false witness. A false witness means that the ego and the free will are running rampant with each other, and then now you're perceiving something through the perception of a falsehood. Because those two things, ego really wasn't supposed to be there. Will, yes. But the will and the source were supposed to be able to communicate without feeling any kind of duality. And unfortunately, that just happened. Now, is the world going to end? No. Because you wouldn't want the world to end if you knew who created it, or how it was created, or by what it was created. That's the understanding part. Will, now, is going to have a sidestepped place. The source is now giving you information about what, if you want to use the word what, who, if you want to use the word who, they, if you want to use the word they, but it really only comes down to one. You didn't exist without the source, and the source is now existing with you because it created you and used all the tools that it needed to use to get what it needed to get, to have the relationship that it wanted. So now the relationship, since everybody wants to see 2012 as this big calendar Mayan thing, if you want to call it that, people will label it. They'll label it as Revelations, they'll label it as Apocalypse, they'll label it as a big rock, they'll label it as the earth is going to crack off and break and blow everybody off the planet, or a big wave is going to jump out of the sea from a tsunami and wipe all the major cities out. Since everybody's in that mind frame, and you want to have a date, well, let's have this one, we'll have this date. We'll have it today. You won't have to wait until December 31st, we'll just go ahead and do it now. What is really going to happen in 2012 is now happening in 2012 because I'm pacing Bill Barry's floor and talking about it. There is now about to be a consciousness shift and change. What does that mean? That means that if you want to call it will, or you want to call it free will, or whatever biblical term or religious term you want to give it, is now not going to be in the picture. And no longer is the will in the picture, the ego is no longer in the picture. Because one of them has to live off of the other one. If one is missing, then you can't have either one, because they work off of each other. So there's no use in just having one. Now you do have one single thought, one single consciousness, one single mindset of knowing and understanding and then wisdom. It's no longer going to be a free, rampant world. And it's not because you don't want it to be, or because that's what your conditioning says that it needs to be. That's not what it is anymore. And now that it has gotten to that point, what I'm saying right now, and if anybody ever gets this, which soon everybody will, I don't know if it's going to be off of Bill's phone, but however you want to see it is however you want to see it. When you hear a voice, whether you want to call it your own, and it's telling you to always do the right thing. Maybe it sounds like you, maybe it sounds like your mother, your father, your brother, your cousin, your uncle, your grandfather, your grandmother, whoever else. That voice is that one tiny little speck that you don't let get through to you 100%. The voice of the very program in your DNA, which is the consciousness of, again, whatever you would like to call it. Whether you want to call it God, whether you want to call it Mary, whether you want to call it Bill, you want to call it TV, universe, anything that you want to call it, doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you have to pray 5 times a day because it's not separate from you. It never was separate from you. You just could not have the ability to be able to let it through and speak because you thought you were nuts. If you heard a voice inside of your head and it was saying something that you wouldn't normally say, most people would think you're nuts. But, you know, that's not the case. The case is that voice that was inside of you was really talking to you because of the very fact of what you are is the same as itself. So now you have an understanding. Now you have knowledge. It's real simple stuff. You are the created and you are the creator. That's why you created everything that you see. If you're looking at a car, you personally may not have built that car, but somebody in Detroit or Germany or Switzerland or America did, and they are exactly from the same place that you are. Exactly in the same place that you are. From the same thing. So, at this point, I'm going to go back one more step, and I'm going to go back to Jesus Christ. That whole situation, the way that it happened, and the reason that it happened the way that it happened, was because he wasn't expected to be crucified.
Stay right in this walkway. Keep talking.
He was not supposed to be crucified.
Okay.
That was not in the plan. That was not in the plan, because you got to remember, you are not going to take your finger off of your hand, okay, and call it your son, okay, and then say that you love it, and you got to remember, this is your finger you pulled off of your hand. And then on the other mindset, after you said that you loved it and that it was your cherished being, your only one and only son, and you've accepted him with your knowledge, are you going to take a hammer and start beating your finger into the table to where it's a bloody mess?
Typically, no.
Well, typically no. That's the whole point. It's simple. Typically no. You wouldn't want to do that. You wouldn't want to take your finger off and smash it into little pieces, because now you don't have a finger. You're not going to be able to pick it up off the floor or scrape it up off the table.
Right.
So that part, not supposed to happen. Now, was there and is there, yes, a belief and books written because of perception that the man was God's son and God sacrificed him. Okay, so we got to get that clear for a second. You got to remember, Jesus Christ was his finger. That means that he, she, it, they, universe, whatever you want to call it, Allah, Hare Krishna, it doesn't matter. And then put it off over here to do a specific purpose. And then change whatever it was that, let's say, at that point was just a place in the brain that couldn't handle the higher experience from the actual showing up of God. He was set there to do a simple thing. Everybody else wants to complicate it, but really, he was a messenger. That's what he was. He was there to say, you're doing it all wrong, and this is not the way it was intended. This is not the plan. This is not the blueprints. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Stop separating yourself from the source that's actually trying to enjoy you with its knowledge and your eyeballs and ears and fingers and emotions that are supposed to be from love, and that's the only one. There's no hate and all that other stuff and jealousy.
So what is the source?
What is the source?
Yeah.
If you don't know what it is, I can't tell you. Because you have your own perception already.
What's your perception?
It is what it is. It is what it is, period. I can't give you a name, and I can't give you a graphic, and I can't give you any kind of pictures. Because those things don't apply in this universe. There's a different dimension. It's kind of like if you were to look into your computer. You know, you're a part of the computer and you were doing what you needed to do with the computer, and it's still in your realm and your existence of what you're supposed to be doing. But at that point, it's really not supposed to be... Wait, hold on. I should turn that off. It's
The higher existence.
not actually in, if you want to call the visible 5 senses, 6 senses, 10 senses universe that you live in this dimension. Now, because I say dimension doesn't mean that everybody has to go to science fiction. You know, you don't have to go to places that are conditioned inside of your mind to believe because of the lack of understanding. Now, when I say that, I don't say that to be contentious. I say that because if everybody was in direct contact with the very thing that created them, again, whatever you want to call it, then there would be no need for me to be explaining this right now. There'd be no need. There'd be no reason for Christ, when he tried to do what he needed to do, and things went wrong. You know, they did a little bit of something for a while, which was it had a really good story, it had a really good emotional piece to it, emotions. You know, human beings, us, man and female, could latch on to. We could latch on to that. And it was something that was very comforting. It's still comforting for everyone else. There is. I won't deny that. So it does have an appeal to it. It helps you to not be afraid. And it helps you to think of something to look forward to. Because most people think that when they die, the first thing that they're going to see is Christ. If you want to see Christ, or if it's God, or your depiction of whatever it is that you want to see and how you want to see it is up to you. We're not even going to go into heaven and hell. That's not even a real conversation anyway. So the way that everything has been depicted so far has been somewhat correct pieces, bits of information. But then there's another flip side to it that was not supposed to be what it ended up being, which was learning about suffering and learning about murder and learning about cruelty and learning about addiction. Those things were not supposed to be what was taught from the story of Jesus Christ. But somehow, You know, you got religious beliefs that say that I must suffer and I must have pain and I must have some kind of torture, whether it's by my own hand or whether it's by others, in order to be able to receive God's law, God's love, God's kingdom, wherever you want to put it, Allah's kingdom, the universe. Someplace I go where I play in fields of flower all day and I'm 5 years old again, but yet I remember everything that I did from my life before. You can give it whatever you want to give it. That part, this is not meant to try to change your mind, try to stretch your belief systems, try to flex whatever conditioning that you've had since you were 0 up to whatever age you are now. That's not what this is about. So you take it how you want to take it, and the disclaimers are out there, and I question nobody. You have to find out for yourself. So with that little thing being said, there is a direct connect. And it talks to you, they talk to you, you talk to you every single day. It's a direct connect. Will now doesn't have a place. Doesn't have a place. There's no reason for it. There's no reason for will and there's no reason for ego, because really, when you have a free will and an ego together, what do you get? You get wars, religious, financial, economic, industrial, feuding, family, mom, dad, sister, brother, kids in a sandbox. That's what you get. You get that. Nobody wants it, but we've come to accept it because we think that that's just the way that the plan was supposed to go, when really, if you looked at it closer, that wasn't the way the plan was supposed to go. So, those two together reign disaster. As you can see, you may be sitting in a big home and have nice cars and a beautiful pool on the beach, and you may have hundreds of millions of dollars. Who knows? Because that really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And the reason that it doesn't matter is because the material world, the money world, I have to have fame or I have to have lots of money so I can be famous. And whether you like it or not is really not up to you at this point. But that's not going to continue. That's not going to continue. That part is over. That is what you want to get from 2012, some kind of major event, if that's what you're focused on. Whether it's a rock, or whether it's an explosion, or whether it's a tsunami, or whatever you want to call it, massive amount of hurricanes, the weather went completely nuts and everybody got wiped off the planet. If you want to call it that, you can call it that. This is what's really happening. Is this right now, what we're talking about, this is what's really happening. The messages that need to get out because no longer is free will and ego going to reign. Now, is this going to hurt like I said before? No, because there's no such thing as hurting, pain, suffering, or being crucified. There was no making sense of that. That's a human terminology. That is a perception of the way that people want to read things, and then they pass it on into written items and books and memos and Sanscripts and carvings on the wall, whatever you want to do with it, and recordings on things that are called TV now, and stand up and blurt junk out of their mouth that really doesn't make any sense. And if you really ask them if they knew what they were talking about, they'd probably try to BS you in some goofy way and come up with their own conclusion, which had absolutely nothing of what they were trying to say in the first place. So all of that stuff is going away. All of the material things, no, it's not going to dissipate like an atom went off and it just disappeared into the ether. It's going to be a subtle shift. And here's the beauty. You won't even know that it's really going on because it's just going to happen. And then you and your source are going to be the same thing, which it was supposed to be in the first place. And still being able to have the relationship and the ability to enjoy, and don't get goofy in your head on me on this one, different dimensions. You have a different dimension from sleep to wake. Yes, your body is still here. Over here, in wake state, yeah, your body's still here. But over here, when you're asleep, where do you go? Can I have something to drink?
Sure. You can have that if you want.
Dude, you really need to just do the whole Coke thing, not the split between the two.
Yeah.
But it's your drink and you can have it. So
You want a Coke?
No, I'm good. No, that's what's going on. That's
You want a beer?
No, I'm good. That's what happened. That's what's happening. That's what and you know what? Anybody, who cares? If you want to call me crazy, you can call me crazy. If you want to call me insane, you can call me insane. Again, I'm not trying to flex, stretch, pressure, break any kind of belief system or conditioning that you have. That's not the point. The point is the information that needs to come out has to come out. Because as everybody is still thinking that there is going to be an extreme interruption from live to dead, again, causes of fear. Fear was a tool, a small tool. It was used so really you could make the difference between should I stand here and get shot or should I find a way to run? Or whether you want to be bitten or eaten by a dinosaur, if you want to look at it from a historical perspective. This whole shift is happening because the other one didn't work. It didn't work. It didn't work. There's intelligent people. We have scholars. We have Greek, Roman. We have European philosophers from whatever age time frame you want to give it. And right now we have professors in schools. We have philosophers that stand on stage and give their philosophy from the past gurus and higher consciousness beings, if you want to call them. And of course you got your alien stuff over here, somewhere in the corner. And the point to all of that is that it still doesn't have anything to do with the actual relationship and consciousness connection with the human being. Again, technology, whatever. You are the highest technology. You live on a planet. You live in a realm. You get to see animals, you get to see bugs, you get to see things that you never even thought existed before, and there's no connection to it. Now there has to be a connection to it. Now again, you may think, oh wow, this guy's really lost his head. He's a nut. He's crazy, he's insane, he smoked too much of whatever it was at Bill's house, he took too many drugs, he drank too many drinks, whatever the case may be. You can say whatever you want to say and think the way that you want to think, because this, again, it seems like something that is different and it's not within your belief system. Now, if it is within your belief system, more power to you. If it's not in your belief system, that's okay, because it really doesn't matter. It's going to happen regardless. And one day you may wake up and you won't even know it even happened. You'll just know that now you are no longer the ego will in the driving seat. You're being chauffeured. Your body's doing what it wants to do because the consciousness, if you want to call it that created the tiny little cells in your body, all the way down to the nucleus and all the way down into the atoms of the DNA that give off all that information, is now driving its will on its own, because the separation can no longer work. After a while, when you're standing outside of a store or a pet shop, and you keep walking by the window every day and you see these puppies playing around, it makes you anxious. You want to go in and you want to play with the puppies. And you want to go interact with the little puppies. You want to go in the door and start playing with them and be with them and na.
Right. I'm just pretending it's kittens because I like kittens better.
Okay, so Mr. Catman.
Right.
So, yeah, it's like really looking at a whole bunch of kittens. 3 or 4 of them are kind of playing around and you love kittens.
I thought they were dogs.
Whatever, I'm going to your side of the world.
Oh, I've converted you.
You converted me. So you go to that place. And after a while, you're just, you can't stand outside the window and watch. You literally want to go interact. That was the original plan in the beginning. But again, like we said, the free will and the ego got in the way. So, with all that being said, for at this very moment, how you want to take it is completely up to you. How you want to take it is whether you want to sit and think on it, whether you want to listen to this over and over again. Your brain, your consciousness, and the source that's already in connection with you just can't get breaking through that will yet and breaking through that ego is going to start being released. That's just the way it is. And if you want, however you want to see this is up to you. If you want to see it for what it is and what it is about to be, fantastic. If you want to see this as a guy ranting and raving and walking in circles and making big gestures and talking rapidly about one single subject, you can look at it that way too. It really doesn't matter. Because the whole point to the thing is, that's your 2012 gift. That's it. That's your 2012 gift. And instead of looking at it like we did before, if you want to say there's going to be a rock that hits the planet or whether there's going to be some kind of destruction of explosions or dead bodies washing out to sea, it really doesn't matter. This is yours. You now have this. This is now out into this dimension. It's now out into this world. Because just these crazy things, however you want to see them, if you want to see them crazy, if you want to see them as divine, if you want to see them as insane, it really doesn't matter. The point is, every single thing in the universe is made of information. For those of you who think that you want to stick to your religious beliefs, your Christianity, well then you just revert back to the one saying, and that's the Word of God. If you want to call it the Word of God, you can call it the Word of God. Because realistically, yes, it is. Because when you speak, a sound comes out of your mouth. We can hear it because we have the same cognitive acting brains that we can communicate with. And that's how we get our information, obviously, because that's how we advanced. Or how the human race has started to advance in certain areas. So that's how information comes out. So if you want to see it, for those of you who have a strong religious belief, if you want to see it as the Word of God, yes, it is the Word of God. Because it's coming from the very source that was created by God, Nirvana, again, universe, whatever you want to call it. It's your choice. Again, not to try to stretch anybody's belief systems. So, and that's just the way it is, and that's the way that it's going to work, and it's that simple. It's that simple. It's just, that's the way it's going to change. That's where everybody's going to start to shift to. And you'll start to see it worldwide, and it'll happen rapidly. Because then there's going to be now paying attention to the things that went wrong and finding solutions instead of looking at them as problems. You're automatically going to know that that wasn't supposed to happen, 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 and then, because you know that it wasn't supposed to happen, you're going to have the understanding of exactly how to fix it, or to remove it, or to add to it to make it better. And that's one of the benefits. And the world will start to come around, whether you want to call it the world, the human race, consciousness, species, you can call it that. We'll begin to start to actually get along. Because now there's not all these dualities of free will and different kinds of egos because of conditioning as a child all the way up into today and what your belief systems were and what books you read and TV shows you watched. That no longer has to exist and no longer will exist. There won't be a feel for conditioning. And because of the non-feel for conditioning and holding yourself down to only a certain belief system allows you now to be free. You're being given the back seat. You get to sit back and watch through your own eyes, and hear through your own ears, and smell through your own nose, and every other sense that you have as a universe, DNA, nervous system experiencing machine, if you want to look at it that way. You can now have the ability to know how your cells work, how to take care of yourself, this body as a body. Most people don't go out and buy a $100,000 car, which some people would like to go, wow, I wish I could afford a $100,000 car, but whatever. They don't let it sit in the driveway and collect leaves, and they don't drive it through mud, and they don't, slam on the gas until the thing conks out and burns out the engine. Most people who buy a car like that don't. Now, I'm not saying that everybody does, but there are people who, just don't have an appreciation for a nice car. That's your body. This is the ultimate vehicle. Ultimate vehicle for what was already supposed to be put in place, which was consciousness, wanting to know consciousness, and having somebody to relate to, because inventing love was a cool thing. It was a cool thing, and that was the experience that was wanting to happen. Happiness, love, joy, rapture, ecstasy, appreciation of everything that you have, appreciation of everything that was created, and you get to be part of the creation and actually enjoy what you have. That's now happening. That's what you'll start to see. People will start riding more bikes because they feel that pulling petroleum, the Earth's blood, out of the ground and putting it into a machine that is going to pull out noxious fumes out the back, or blow out noxious fumes out the back, and pollute its own environment. Its own environment. Although it sounds like it's ranting and it's raving, and he must be an activist, and he must be with Greenpeace, or he must be some kind of recycling nut. No, that's not it. That's just because that's just the simple truth. It'd be like allowing a whole bunch of fleas on your body to literally suck you dry and then turn around and fart your same, right? Right out the back.
Uh-huh.
And then you have a little field of atmosphere no more than maybe a foot off of your body, and you've got 6 billion fleas on you, sucking your blood and then farting it back out, and then polluting you and them at the same time. That's what fleas do. Makes sense?
Uh-huh.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what humans do right now. I can't say every human because you don't own a refinery. But the collectiveness between all human beings thinking it's the same, because it is the same, because you drive a car. And if you drive a car, that means that you're somehow kind of okay with that whole scenario.
So are you saying that
That's
if
called
you drive a car, you're helping the fleas?
Yes, basically you are, because the more that you drive a car and pollute your environment, the dumber that you get, the more likely you're going to have fleas.
Gotcha.
And you won't even know you have fleas. You'll be sitting on your couch and
You're
you
gonna
have like
you're
5
gonna have
dogs
a billion
in your
of them
house.
on you. You're gonna have a billion of them on you. You
Oh
won't even
my
know you
God.
have
And
them.
all you're doing is going, wow, these fleas, these fleas, these fleas. And then you'll go sit back down on your same spot. So there's your alternative. Either you can be ravaged by fleas and have zero knowledge of it until you're dead the next morning. Or you can choose to reach the higher consciousness place that you're going to reach anyway.
If those are my two choices, I'd much rather reach the higher consciousness.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good idea. I don't think I want to sit there and be
Ravaged
eaten
by
and rot
fleas.
from fleas.
Yeah, I don't want to be ravaged by fleas.
So, you know what? We'll conclude this later on because my phone is about to die and it's 5:37 and somebody tried to call me.
Well, it's
Okay, well, we can go for a
probably
little bit longer.
probably a telemarketer.
Well, no, actually it was... My battery's about to die. That's not good.
Mine too.
So,
Down to 10%.
I mean, we can go for a couple more minutes, but then, I want to wrap it up because I want to
Okay.
not be interrupted by the
Yeah.
phone.
Whatever works for you.
So, I don't know how much more I can ramble about other than that's how it's going to be. And
Well, you didn't really elaborate on the 2012 like apocalyptic thing, the
I
Mayan
already
calendar.
did that. This is it.
I know, but like, what do you think people think of that? Like as a whole, as a society, what do you think people think of it?
Well, there are going to be some that say, really? Consciousness shift? What does that mean? Well, you are conscious, and you do know that you're aware of yourself, and you do create. Right there. That's what you created. You created that. The wood and the canvas and everything may have been there somewhere. You put it all together and made up the design of whatever it was going to be. And that means it's now in this world. You created that. This is your creation. So that's what you're a co-creator. If you want to look at it that way, you're a co-creator. And what was the question?
What do you think people in society at large think of the whole apocalyptic thing?
I think most of them don't even pay attention to it. I don't think really people pay much attention to it because they're too busy in their lives.
Do you think they should?
No, there's no point in it. Actually, when an earthquake happens, and this is going to be a little deep for you, that's really just the fabric of this reality cracking because of a certain conscious belief system that everybody is stuck in.
Is that just earthquakes, or is that all?
Oh, that's anything. That could be anything. That could be literally looking through a telescope and seeing a giant rock come at the planet. You really did talk yourselves right into it. Because the way that reality works is what you don't want, you're going to see. And what you do want, you're going to see. So if you don't want a rock to slam into the planet and that's all you're thinking about, a rock's going to slam into the planet. And if you want a rock to slam into the planet, a rock is going to slam into the planet.
Uh-huh.
That's how reality is made. That's how all the things that you see around here is made. Doesn't mean that you have to make it with your hands only. You make it with your brain. You make it with your consciousness first. And then you create. Then you paint. It comes from inside the voidness, if you want to call it. Actually, I'll get detailed on it. It comes from the very, so people know what atoms look like, because most people know what atoms look like. I can't try to describe what something doesn't, you can't see. I can't describe that. So I'll describe it down to the atom. Since most people think it's what it is, whatever you think an atom is. Most people have heard it and know what it is, or at least have a slight consciousness of what it is. An atom is a containment unit for pure thought, pure consciousness, pure creativity. Knowledge, understanding, and wisdom are packed with all of this knowledge. Not just how to build a body, not just how to contain it and how to keep it healthy and have eyeballs to see from and ears to hear from and a mouth to eat from and taste from. That's not what it's all about. All of that knowledge it's originally supposed to come back through you. Once it gets into you and then expands, because that's what it does. It expands. The information is pulled. Boom, opened up. Inside of the nucleus of a cell.
Uh-huh.
And then that information is patient. It takes its time because there's no such thing as time and there's no need for a rush. And it goes through its methodical little assembly line mechanical manufacturing process. You want to call it that. And it takes the information and it sends that information on, and that information goes from one point to the next and builds proteins and amino acids and all sorts of, different kinds of little organelles and for the cell itself, and beyond that into the body's movement system of lungs and heart and all the things that you're created from to live in this realm with the very consciousness that created you. I rambled.
It's okay.
So, there are going to be people who understand it, And then there are going to be people that go, no! No way, I can't